This also happens with all the good things. People are also thinking behind your back, good for you for doing this. But because, they haven't seen you in a long while and they sort of heard through the grapevine you're doing this podcast and they think, oh, good on you. And you don't know how many people are out there supporting you.
You're listening to Podcasting for Experts with honest conversations about using podcasting as a tool to grow your reach, increase your audience, make a positive impact on the world, and most importantly, to get paid for your efforts. I'm your host, Jess, and we are Pristine Podcasts. Let's talk podcasting. Hey, and welcome back. This is Jess, co-founder here at Pristine Podcasts, and this is Season 3, Episode 2 of Podcasting for Experts. And today, I am bringing you a super interesting interview with the lovely Petra Fischer, master of all things LinkedIn. So we had a little bit of a weird interaction when it came to deciding to do an interview together. I went out to look for experts on all sorts of different platforms that you could technically be using to promote a business as well as a podcast. And frankly, LinkedIn is one of those platforms that I have never really managed to use consistently. And it is one that, of course, I would not be recommending as the default platform for someone to check out that is literally just doing a podcast. However, we all know that a lot of us are actually business owners, and that's when LinkedIn comes in as a platform that is actually a very amazing space for you to leverage the podcast content that you've created. Petra was kindly pointing that out to me in the comments when I went looking for guest expert, and she just flat out said, hey, you forgot all about LinkedIn. And I have to say, now that I've spoken to her, I actually agree with her. So in this episode, we're diving into the basics of getting started with actually leveraging LinkedIn. So like I mentioned, I personally just had a profile totally out of date, never did anything with it, and it's the platform I keep forgetting my password for the most. So yeah, one of those things that I just have left kind of lying around, wasting potential over there. And we're talking about all of the ways that you can actually optimize your existing profile, how you can bring more attention to the things that would make you stand out. Petra shares some amazing tips on, to me, completely hidden LinkedIn features that I didn't even know existed. And we also discuss what to do if you still have a day job and you're kind of moonlighting your podcast or even a business as a whole. So I hope that you enjoy the interview as much as I did talking to Petra. And with all of that said, let's dive into the interview. Hey Petra, thank you so much for joining us for this interview today. How are you doing?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I love being on podcasts because I'm too lazy to record any myself. So being a guest is what I love, and I'm happy to be here.
I like that. I think that's the smart way of doing it, because it definitely does take a decent amount of work, as the majority of people listening will be able to vouch for being editing themselves and for doing all the things. So yeah, it's definitely the smart way to use guesting and leverage it that way without having all of the work. So I have to say that's a good idea.
Yeah.
All right. So something that I always do at the beginning, obviously, we talked about, the general topic. We were going to talk about LinkedIn today.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things that I know the least about. So I say, to start with, that we had this very funny interchange in the Facebook group where I was looking for guests on specific topics, and Petra showed up and she went, oh, actually, you forgot to mention LinkedIn as like a platform where your podcasters could be promoting their things. And I was like, yeah, actually, you're very right. And the reason why I conveniently forget about it is because in the last 6 years of running a business, I have not gone to consistently use LinkedIn whatsoever. So I am actually quite excited to be talking about this today, because I feel like it's something that I've not leveraged at all. I can't wait to hear more about that. But before we get there, I want to know, how did you end up talking about LinkedIn? What brought you on that pathway?
Yeah, for sure. So it was a bit of an accidental pathway. Okay, so I was working for this NGO that had to let go of people. There's uncertain times, and friends of mine said, oh, you should just start your own business. And I was like, yeah, but in what? Because the thing I'm really good at, what's really, really my thing, is being a trainer, but not in a particular topic. And so also in my employed role, that's what I did. I was delivering workshops and I was doing training for colleagues and stuff. So anyways, this first round of redundancies came. About 20% of people lost their jobs. I was still on a temporary contract, but I was one of the 2 temporary contracts that got renewed. And then I thought, again on a 1-year contract. I don't want to be this nervous this time next year. Maybe while I've still got the security of an income, I should start my own business so there's no pressure and see what happens. So at first I started out as a social media trainer because that was a bit up and coming at the time. And I soon realized I'm too lazy to keep up with all the different things. And so LinkedIn appealed the most to me because it's a way to really present yourself, show your narrative of your career so that anything you've done in the past suddenly becomes relevant to what people need to know about you now. And I think the combination of my background in social work, social work and coaching, and then my training experience and my love for writing and being a bit of a grammar nerd, they sort of all came together in LinkedIn more than any of the other platforms. So I started out as a side hustle. I did get made permanent after that second scary year. And so over the next few years, each time as my business got a little bit better, I talked to HR at work and said, I want to reduce my working hours until at some stage I was 24 hours working, business on the side. And then I thought, I think I can do it. Yeah, I left the job and went full time. And I think a really good thing about starting your business as a side hustle is that you can be really picky and choosy. Like you don't have to take on clients because you need to pay the bills. So because you only do the assignments and work with the people that feel really, really good in your gut, you're actually enjoying yourself. So you're doing better work. So you're getting better recommendations. And even though it happened accidentally, if I was to do it again, I would absolutely start as a side hustle with that pressure of, because I'm a single mom with a mortgage. So without having to fully rely on that income. So here we are, 10-year in business. Haven't missed the mortgage payment. Child still has clothes on her back. Cat gets fed. So
what more do you need? I think you're very right, actually, on the sideline thing, because I used to work in daycare. I was a manager in a day nursery, so private sector. So I worked all the hours for not very much in return, to be honest. So, and I started the business while I was doing that. And then obviously, if you work in daycare, you know that if you're in any country where you're being regulated, you have inspections and, Ofsted turn up at any point. And I took over a setting that was very, very, very bad. So I was working a lot of hours to try and fix that. And I was doing the business on top of it. And after that was kind of secured, I thought of pulling down my hours, and I talked to them and they tried it for 2-3 months. And although we didn't really have a problem, me and my deputy were kind of balancing out the hours between us, but the owners really didn't like it.
Oh, true.
So they basically said that either you're coming back to work full time or, we're going to have to look for someone else. And that's how I actually ended up leaving not that much after, because I was like, okay, I'll come back to work full time. But I was like, I'm going to work every night as late as I can. And I'm going to work every weekend until I have enough people to just let it go. And I did that. But I 100% agree. It would have been easier in those first few months. And I wouldn't have had to take on quite as many people that I didn't really want to take on if I had had the option to stay and to just cut back my hours. So I think you're very right on that. Has anything made it easier for you when you were building things up at the beginning, but you didn't have that many hours available? Because I think lots of people that are listening to this are in the same boat where their podcast, as well as their business, if the podcast is part of a business, it happens after hours, it happens at the weekends, and there's a job and there's family. And that's something that as well as having no backup, whatsoever. Have you figured out anything that made it easier to do it?
Well, so first of all, it was, I guess, easier for me because the first 2 years, I didn't even know if I wanted to be a business owner. So to me, it was more fun. It was almost like Monopoly money, It's like, oh, look at that, a client,
2,000 extra, nice.
So half the time I just invested it in my business to instead of spending 3 hours in Google to make one change to my website, get someone to do it for me. Or it was also, to me, at first the business was, okay, is it going to be 10 days in Spain this summer or 4 weeks in Thailand? So it was just sort of extra money. But also, I think my situation made it easier. A lot of people think, oh, single parent, and I mean totally single, not as if there was alimony payments or a dad to shove the kid to every second weekend. But I think it also makes it easier because you're used to having to do everything. So it's not you're relying on someone else to do something who then doesn't show up. Also, once a child was in bed at night, I didn't have to be social because I was just here by myself. But I think for me, the biggest thing that made it easier was that I wasn't in it seriously at first until it started to work. And then I thought, maybe this could go somewhere. But also with things online, so, in my case, LinkedIn, that also makes life a lot easier because you don't have to go somewhere. You can do it on your phone. When I was still in the day job, I had 10 minutes on the ferry to get there, 10 minutes on the ferry to go back. Normally, I'm an avid reader. I'd have a book with me, but sometimes I just use those times to at least keep up with building relationships on LinkedIn and finding these little moments. But I also made a point to have set times where I just absolutely wouldn't work because otherwise you can
I could work 24/7. It doesn't matter. We were just talking about it yesterday. It was Sunday and another guest sent me a message and she was like, I'm so sorry, I know it's Sunday, but I'm working on this, like, any idea? And I was like, oh yeah, don't bother, we're on our way out to go sit somewhere, because it's just easy for us as well because we're both at home, so it's super easy to be working basically all day and forget about taking the time off as well. And that way, maybe family and kids are nice because every once in a while they're going to want to see your face and they'll be like, are you going to come and actually do this with me? And you'll be like, oh, yeah, good point. I really should put that away now and maybe go and do something together. So, okay, so you decided to go for LinkedIn because it seemed, and I agree with you, it has been the platform that probably has been the most consistent over the entire time that I've been around, because I don't see a new article every other week that says, hey, LinkedIn changed this, LinkedIn changed that. And it's like, I mean, just us being on Instagram with this new account for the last year has been like, I don't know, hey, everybody's doing this now. Hey, everybody's doing this one. I'm like, I don't want to be doing reels. I don't like it.
I mean, LinkedIn does change a lot as well. Like right as we speak, as we're recording this in, is it early December? There's lots of changes rolling out at the moment to your profile. They tried stories for a bit, then they decided to kill it again, which is a shame because on LinkedIn, you didn't need 10,000 followers to do the swipe up ad link thing. You only need 5,000. But so it is constantly changing. And I kind of like that. I know some of my peers, other LinkedIn trainers, get really frustrated when you're doing a live training and it doesn't look the way it's supposed to look. Whereas I'm sort of like, it's my excuse for not having answers, right? Oh, they must have changed something again. Look, you can't expect any LinkedIn trainer to always know everything because they're constantly changing things and tweaking in the same way. You know how Instagram got reels now. Yeah, on LinkedIn, at times, certain things work better than others. So at the moment, and this is really good news for people who are more on Instagram than on LinkedIn, because carousel posts do really well. And on LinkedIn, a carousel post doesn't mean uploading multiple images, because if you do that, there's just images all over the place, ugly, like on Facebook. But if you have multiple images and save them as a PDF, when you upload a PDF with your post, that becomes like a swipey carousel thing. And they're doing really well with the algorithm at the moment. So I find that is really cool because so many business owners now focus on Instagram first. And I think this way it makes it a lot easier to have the same kind of fun on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'm totally gonna write that down because, we created so much content this year, like really valuable stuff as well as carousel posts. And they did really well on Instagram. But obviously, like you said, on Facebook, they look like somebody, I don't even know what that looks like.
Yeah,
like some pages out of a book like dropped.
So what I do for anyone who's like myself, a non-graphic designer and just thinks they can do it all and uses Canva, when I create multiple images in Canva, I save them as images to go on Instagram. I save it as a multi-page PDF to go on LinkedIn. I'll just save it as a video to go on Facebook. Because when in Canva you have multiple images and you save it as a video, it sort of moves every 5 seconds or whatnot. So that way you only need to create the content once and you can use it all the different platforms.
That's a nice thing. What do you think are like the key things that we have to bear in mind when it comes to getting started on LinkedIn? Like I've had my profile on LinkedIn, let's say for, 10 years. Half of the people who are still on my LinkedIn are people who work for daycare recruitment agencies. The other half are people that, I just know off of other platforms. And it's just this like mumbo jumbo. And then there's, you create your business page and all that good stuff. So I set up a business page for Pristine Podcasts, for example, but not much going on there. And otherwise, I just have all these notifications of people who've got new jobs. And I'm like, awesome. I don't know what to do with any of it. And I end up so overwhelmed with like all the red notifications from everywhere that I don't even know where to start. So is it just a case of I literally just post the same stuff as I would everywhere else? Is there something I need to bear in mind with that content that I even want to put there? And then where do I put it?
So for example, what's important? Obviously your profile, because when you're posting good content or making relevant comments and people start to notice you, they're going to check out your profile. So I love that you have a really good banner there and a fabulous profile picture. And for anyone who's listening, if you get your picture done professionally, don't think that photographers know all, because they often want you in a pose where your shoulders are turned a little bit and then your head comes straight again to face the camera. And that is fine, as long as it makes you sort of turned into your profile, so that if someone's reading your profile, your shoulders are turned towards them, which yours has, because often these photographers don't pay attention to that, and you're actually turning your back on people, even though you're still making eye contact. So that top bit I like. But then here comes the thing, just underneath your name, and this for all of us, we can put a headline. So you can type your own thing there. It used to be 120 characters. Now you have 220 characters you can put there. But the first little bit, depending on whether people are on mobile or desktop, so say 40 to 60 characters, is what is visible when you comment on something. So in your case, people will see service-based business owner. And I'm like, yeah, so?
Useless, yeah.
And then you just have keywords, right? Podcast strategy, online business strategy, multi-passionate. But if you said something like, I help business owners with their podcast strategy or whatnot. So if you can make it as clear as possible in that opening, so don't check my profile because I don't listen to myself, but if you can make it as clear as possible what you're doing whom for in that first bit, then every time you comment, people who are reading your comment also see your profile picture, your name, and that little bit of information. So that should be the most important bit of information for them. 2 other quick tips that LinkedIn rolled out in the last year. You can record a cover story. Story as in we're used to stories, except this one is 30 seconds. It doesn't disappear. You can only do this on your phone, but then you get an orange circle around your head with your picture and banner is actually not a bad thing. For some people, the color is horrible, but whenever you see someone's profile with that orange circle around their head, so you can see it on mine, when you tap that, a 30-second video starts playing. So you can introduce yourself, what you do, whom for, because 30 seconds, that's 95 words, 95 words. So that's a lot. And the second thing, and this is even cooler, again, you can only add it on your mobile, but once it's there, it's for everybody. You have the option to record, and this is audio only, the pronunciation of your name. Now, this is really nice for people if they're going to be in a Zoom call with someone, that they can first check, has that name pronounced, so they don't stuff up. But you've got 10 seconds to do this. Most names don't take 10 seconds to pronounce, because 10 seconds is about 25 words. So you can have a pitch in there. So that's some things for your profile to really, really nail that first bit when people hit your profile before they scroll even further. Now, I like what you said about the notifications, because the ones about this person has a birthday, this person has a new job, this person has a promotion, are the ones I love the most.
Interesting.
These are so good, because you start building your network. But as you get more and more connections, you don't have time to always be messaging and paying attention, doing stuff to everyone. But these notifications make it dead easy to sort of pop up in someone's mind again. Because if you get a notification someone has a birthday, and you just send a quick message, not the LinkedIn default, but it doesn't have to be long, but just any birthday message, they remember again that you exist. The same with new job promotion, all these kind of things. So I love the notifications as the easiest way to, pop back in someone's mind. I think you asked more things, but I think
I probably did.
These are big things. Oh, you mentioned about you setting up a LinkedIn company page. The reason why everybody should do this is because that way your logo comes on your personal profile. But I wouldn't worry too much about being really active with your company page, because it's hard to build a following and it's a lot easier to build a personal following. But the thing is, although it sounds a bit silly and like a vanity metric, but everybody out there, aim for the 500 plus connections if you want to be taken seriously in your business. For some reason, we're now so used to people having 500 plus connections that if we see 398, it just looks like, how long have you been in business? And it's stupid, but it's just the way it works. And it's quite easy to get a lot of connections in a genuine manner. I used to sell a little course for that. That was really dirt cheap, but now I've added it to another course because I think fixing your profile and setting up your network are equally important. So now they're just sort of thrown in together. But everybody knows 500 people, even if you think you don't. It's just a bit of a mindset thinking, okay, who do I still remember from school? Who do I know from my past career? And in your case, you said that, there's so many different people in your network, like from your childcare days. And hey, I worked in childcare too, about 20 years ago on the baby group. But it doesn't matter. What matters is that you grow your network, because when you post something, if you're not very active on LinkedIn yet, only about 10% of your connections will see it. So in your case, that's 39 people. And that is where it depends. Are they going to engage with it to tell the algorithm, hey, this is good stuff, show it to more people? But also, if people do a search on LinkedIn, they don't get all the matching results from the whole 800 million member database. When you do a search on LinkedIn, you get the results from your network in the broader sense. Your network is your first degree connections, their connections, so that's second degree, their connections, that's third degree, and people that belong to the same group as you. So for example, because I see we're not even connected yet. If you connect with me, you add one first degree connection, but 7,500 second degree connections, and then all their connections. So that
I see. It's
really
a bit like a chain.
Yeah, so that makes a way bigger field where you can show up in searches. So that is also a reason why I think the network is really, really important. And it doesn't matter if they're the right people or not, because if people see your content and they engage with it, then their network sees it and you don't know who they're connected to. Or if you show up regularly, someone in your network, might just be someone that you used to work with 20 years ago, and they've just accepted your invite because that seemed like the right thing to do. But then they notice your content, and whether they engage with it or not, one day they'll be catching up with a friend who's about to start a podcast. And, who's like, oh, yeah, everybody seems to be doing this. How am I going to stand out or whatnot? And they say, you need to talk to Jessica because she really knows what kind of strategies to put into a podcast to make them work.
I see how that works. I think that makes it a very interesting, like I know a lot of people. I just don't, like I haven't logged into LinkedIn I think I logged in last time like 1 month ago, and then it's been 2 years before that. And I have a million connection requests that are in there. I just ignore them. I don't know who these people are. I'm like, I left it for too long to like want to deal with it. So I have to set aside like a few hours to like just tidy the whole thing up and just figure out what's going on in there. And I think that's something that's what I mean when I say I don't use it. It's the platform I've lost my password to the most. So that's like the state of the nation. So tidying out the profile, and those are super amazing tips. I've never heard of that story, or that you could pronounce your name, which for my surname would always be useful, because people are always like at the bank, hello, miss, can I call you Jessica? I'm like, yes, fine. So that's about how good it goes.
Yeah.
So pages, important, but not that important. Profile.
Yeah, I mean, my friend Michelle Raymond would disagree, because she made it her niche to only do LinkedIn training based on business pages. I always refer to her, except now she wrote a book. So if I just read the book, I don't need to send people her way anymore, and can just teach them. Here you go, Michelle. Hope you're listening. But yeah, no, don't try and do it all. And if you say, look, you've got so many connection requests now, this is interesting you saying this, because your story, where you've never really paid much attention to LinkedIn, you weren't quite sure how it could benefit your business or get more people interested in your podcast, and then you just sort of stick your head in the sand and ignore all the invites and notifications, and just as soon as you log on, you see all these circles with big numbers. You're like, oh, I've heard that quite a few times. So the good news is you're not crazy or anything.
Oh no, I'm sure I'm not.
A lot of people. So ultimately, it actually developed into a service that is not even on my website, because I tend to do a lot of my work only with people that I've already spoken to, but it's actually turned into this sort of VIP day, or sort your shit out day, where, I sit with people and we go through all the important things. Because also all these connection requests, when they're too many, the quickest way is to just accept the whole lot, and then you get a couple of inappropriate messages, so you disconnect and block them, and from then you can keep on top of things if you have the strategy. Because ultimately, when you connect with someone, then LinkedIn will give you notifications saying, oh, your new connection so and so just posted. So it's really easy to keep it warm in the beginning, to accept a connection, probably send a message, not a salesy but a nice one, comment on one of their posts, and then if they don't respond or reply to anything, you think, well, you leave them alone, because as your network grows, you can't interact with everybody all the time. But doing that a little bit at the beginning also helps with the algorithm seeing that you're, sort of active, and then they'll give your posts more visibility. But as far as the overwhelm goes, when I work with people one-on-one or in my small group program, I always aim for, okay, if you really want to get results from LinkedIn, you need to set aside 30 minutes to work with full focus. And then I ask people, okay, so if I say you need 30 minutes to work with full focus on LinkedIn, how many times a week are you going to do that? And then some people think it's a trick question, that there's only one right answer. And there is, but the right answer is not 3 days or 5 days or 7 days. The right answer is
whatever you can do consistently
possible in your calendar, but also you need to find the right balance, that it's fun, that it's not a chore, that's not something else you have to do, but that it's enjoyable. So that is what I really focus on with people. Look, I'm not into hard prospecting and lead generation, all that. I'm into doing it organically. So just be visible and people will notice you and come to you. But my main focus when I work at strategies with people is what is going to work for you. How much time you're willing to spend on it, what kind of content you want to do, how can you stop yourself from taking 45 minutes to write a comment that I would write in 2 minutes, and really, really find what works for you, both your personality, your business, and, your calendar, your life, so that it just becomes a fun thing to do a couple of times a week. And then suddenly you realize, oh, there's a client. Ooh, I got a phone call one day. Someone said, yeah, my neighbor so-and-so told me about LinkedIn. I really needed to call you. And that name of the neighbor, that so-and-so, didn't ring a bell. So I quickly looked him up on LinkedIn and saw that we had connected 6 years ago, but I don't know why, I don't know where. And she must have been following me and told her neighbor, you should ring that Petra lady. So that's how easy it can be with LinkedIn.
Would you love to be part of a community with other podcasters, business owners, entrepreneurs, and industry experts to brainstorm ideas or potential solutions to challenges that you're experiencing? Then why not come and join the Podcasting for Experts community on Facebook? We are a growing community of business owners and podcasters who want to continuously improve our skills and find new ways to use our podcasts to grow our businesses. And if that's what you want to, then come and join us at pristinepodcast.com/group. I really look forward to getting to know you and your show.
We were talking some time ago because we did a push of getting some content out on YouTube and then started the podcast after that. And then I do upload the podcast episodes to YouTube, but I don't do anything else. And we just had a discovery call and the lady said, oh, I found you on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And we only have, I don't know, like podcasting is still a very niche topic. And there's hardly any search volume as far as Google search goes. You know, even the podcast search volume on YouTube is very, very low in comparison to how do I start a business, which gets a gazillion searches. So it's very specific. And we have like a whopping 26 subscribers, but somebody got on a discovery call because they found a YouTube video. So I know that it doesn't take that much to have an impact.
Yeah, this is really cool what you're saying, because I think you wouldn't be the only podcaster to put it on YouTube as well. And you can share that again on LinkedIn. And okay, if your goal is to grow your YouTube channel, then you would link. But generally, you upload your video natively to LinkedIn in a post because of, LinkedIn, Facebook, they're all the same. They want to keep people on that platform. So when you natively upload, the algorithm is going to like it better than if you put a link to your YouTube. But again, it's not right or wrong, because if your goal is to grow, in general, whoever's listening, if your goal is to grow your YouTube channel or to get a lot of traffic to your website, then you put links. And even though the algorithm will reduce your reach a little bit, what's the point of having real big visibility on LinkedIn if you want them to go somewhere else? Look, for me, it's easy. My website is just sort of there so people can check out my services, but I don't do much with it. But so when you sort of think about what you want to achieve with your business, like today and in the next year, then you can really use LinkedIn to help that, to achieve that. Because the other thing is, people always think it's serious and stuffy and professional. Well, go follow me and you see it's not. But to me, yes, it is a business network, business platform. So I always ask people, okay, when you work with a client, what kind of clothes do you wear? Because that is going to be your profile picture. I show up in t-shirts even when I deliver training at government departments. So I don't put a jacket in my profile picture. When you speak to your clients or on a discovery call or whatnot, are you chatty? Are you to the point? Are you formal? Are you casual? Do you swear? Do you not swear? Just how do you naturally act when you're working with your clients? That is business. LinkedIn is a business platform. So that is how you act. And don't think, oh, no, I have to be all this and all that. No, you have to be exactly as you show up in your own company. And that's all there is to it, really.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I guess it's hard when still in a position where potentially you're using LinkedIn because you have an actual professional front-end job that, people could be looking you up for, and then you're starting this podcast thing, on the side in the secret cabinet, and that's something else I was going to ask about. So I think for me, one thing that I had to learn was that people just care like way less than you think they do, right? So when you're first starting a podcast and you've never done anything, you've never produced anything, it's super easy to think that, oh my God, everyone's going to see this and they're going to judge me and they're going to think really bad things about me and it'll be so embarrassing and, stuff like that. I literally don't think that most people actually even check it out. They mostly just go, what? And just ignore it because they're not really interested, and that's fine. So do you think if you're starting something new on the side, you would say, hey, go for it, talk about it on LinkedIn as well, if you're still having the professional network from your job and people there? Or would you say, hey, start a second account and just do it that way?
That's an absolute no-no. Starting a second account is a breach of the LinkedIn terms and conditions.
Same as Facebook. Yeah.
That's the first thing, because you're only one person. Secondly, who are you going to connect to? How are you going to keep them separate and all that, even if you wanted to break the rules? But ultimately, it depends on your relationship with your current employer. Look, I went and talked to them first when I started my own business. I said, this is what I'm going to do. In my case, because I was delivering training on all sorts of topics where I was working, there could be a conflict of interest. So before they even asked, I said, look, if anyone that's actually, related to our organization approaches me for some kind of training, I won't reply from my own email. I will forward it to myself at work and then do a quote from our organization. Even though it's a service we're not currently delivering, we'll just add it on so that it was a win-win. Because for me, it doesn't matter, right? Do I get paid in my own company, or do I go and do things I like better than my daily things in the boss's time? But really, when I first said I was working at an NGO, that I wanted to start my own business on the side, they were applauding it. Of course, that would mean I would develop more entrepreneurial spirit, have more business insights, which would also benefit the organization where I work as an employee. Sometimes there's something with compliance, but ultimately your LinkedIn is your own, right? And generally, talking about your podcast wouldn't harm the position you're in, unless the two topics would totally conflict. Like, I don't know, say you were still a manager in a childcare business and your podcast was all about how to hold down your job, raise your kids without having to stick them in a crèche. Well, that I could understand that your employer at the time would not be happy about. But ultimately, be as open, honest, and transparent as you can, because it saves you so many headaches. When you have two positions that don't have an end date, so two current roles, look, one is your employee role, one is your side hustle. On LinkedIn, when a job doesn't have an end date, you can reorder them. That's one of the things they just changed, but my most recent LinkedIn post shows you how to do that. I always had my own business top, not my employee role. But again, it depends also if you're in a role where you're using LinkedIn a lot for your work as an employee, you might want to do it the other side. But ultimately, it also means, even if your podcast is a passion project, if it's not business related, if it's not going to get you money, but just because you feel strongly about a certain topic and that it should become more awareness, and that's why you're doing a podcast around it. It also means that people get to know you better, and ultimately also in your employee role, people relate to each other. They don't do business with a building. They don't do business with a logo. They do business with their contact within that organization. So I would say it only strengthens your position there.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. So I thought it was scary to talk to work when I did. And I can't say that they were entirely positive, but they didn't say, no, you're not allowed to. And there was no conflict of interest. So, I was like, well, I am going to do this just so you're aware of it. I will do it after hours, but whatever. And then I suggested cutting my hours and they agreed to try it and then went back on it. So they didn't like it, but no one ever said anything, negative in that sense. And I do think even if, I don't know, we've got some really interesting clients who have like podcasts that have nothing to do with anything business related, but the podcast itself has become a business. So, that can happen as well. So maybe it's scary stories. Maybe it's, serial murderers that you're interested in and you have a passion researching and whatever. But it is a very creative thing to do as well. And that's a skill too. It's a skill to research. It's a skill to write It's a skill to tell stories. It's a skill to interview. It's a skill to, so there are so many things that you're actually showing off, in my opinion, that are like creative, but very useful skills, even if you're going to go and get a new job.
You make a really good point there, because if you're using your podcast as a side hustle and you're going to have a conversation at work, letting them notice what you're doing, use these points that Jessica just said, all these skills about research and, project management even, and structure. Think about everything you do for your podcast as a skill, and how you also be able to use that skill to be better at your job, your day job, so that people see the benefits of you doing that rather than feeling threatened by it.
I think that's a general thing people need to learn a lot more. I'll give them an example on that front, but my mum messaged me about the work canteen. She was like, my bank, they're taking it to the next level now. They're going to close our work canteen without any notice. And there'll be no more food at work. We are so angry. We're going to send this really angry letter telling them about all the reasons why we don't like this. And then I was like, well, how about you send them a letter with all the reasons why they're silly to make that decision? And that worked, funnily enough. So we rewrote the letter and we said, hey, we don't think you should be closing the canteen because it's COVID now. There'll be new COVID rules. We won't be allowed to go out anymore. People are more likely to get sick. They'll bring it back. We'll all have to stay home and quarantine for 2 weeks. And the bank can't operate because they cannot take work home. So you need people to be safe and be able to be at work. And they were like, people will go out for their lunch break and they'll take longer lunches than normal. And that's going to cost you in work time because there's no canteen here. So what are you going to say? So we found all the reasons why it would be a stupid business decision to make. And in the same way, if you sell it like that, then, it might not be actually so difficult.
Yeah, and that's really good. That's sort of, negotiation one-on-one. Put yourself in the shoes of the other party. Think about what reasons they have to disagree with you, and then already come up with counters. But then in the conversation, you don't even have to wait for them to bring that up and then be ready to respond, because you can proactively list all the benefits of the things that they see as, a negative. So, and I guess that's the same on LinkedIn, if you, because sometimes people talk to me and says, yeah, but if I'm going to post on there and people are going to see it, what are they going to think? That I think I have this knowledge, or that I talk about this topic, or even worse, not just what are people going to think, what if they put that in a comment? And, but ultimately, if you post something about something in your area of expertise, your area of your passion, your area of your values, and someone puts a stupid comment, and then other people are going to see it, what are the other people going to think about you and about the person that wrote the stupid comment? So ultimately, even that works in your advantage, because people are, the other person shows their true colors, which are not very nice. And people often speak up for you. Other people will reply to it. You can just sort of sit back and, but the thing is,
check out, just be like, nope, I'm not going to enter that.
People are always going to think things about you. So with social media, people are more likely to put them in writing rather than keep their thoughts to themselves. But this also happens with all the good things. People are also thinking behind your back, good for you for doing this. But because, they haven't seen you in a long while and they're sort of heard through the grapevine you're doing this podcast, and they think, oh, good on you. And you don't know how many people are out there supporting you. Once you start being more visible on LinkedIn, those people are also going to comment, and, that's going to give you a whole positive vibe. So I think it's generally pretty cool on LinkedIn, but there's trolls like everywhere. It's a fact of online life, I guess.
Yeah, I think where people always get a bit stuck is when they're thinking, what are people going to think that know me in my current real life? And I have this side identity to me that I've kind of been keeping under wraps. And I think on LinkedIn that comes out very easily, because these are people that you work with, and they make, that's where you make your professional impression. And maybe your business isn't that same kind of, the same kind of professional front that you have to put on at work. And I think that's where understanding that actually all of what you're doing, what you're investing time into, it gives you new skills that, you know, others are not getting them because they're just doing whatever they do day in, day out. They're not learning extra things. They're not getting better at anything right now, but you are doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what can help to maybe change your mind about not going out on LinkedIn and being like, hey, I have this side business and I have this podcast. Like, I was going to ask on audio, LinkedIn doesn't have a way to repurpose audio only, right? It has to be video, or is there a way to benefit from having audio?
I don't think it supports uploading audio files at the moment, but you know, also you wouldn't want to put like a full podcast episode on there anyway, because no one's going to pay attention to that. So what I see some of the podcasters do that I know, you know, they create this image with a little soundbite on it, and then if you save that as a video, then it would still work. So there's a little workaround there.
Yeah.
Purely audio only, except of course that name pronunciation thing. I know it's only 10 seconds, but that's 25 to 30 words. You can put a really good bits in there. But obviously you do say your name, but yeah.
I think creating audiograms is super simple as well. Like, there are so many platforms out there now that just allow you to just upload your thing, pick 3-4 snippets, and then you can use that to repurpose it. You can add some additional thoughts onto it, and then you'll be able to share that in no time. And I agree that when people want long form audio content, they are probably going to go to their podcasting app and not necessarily while they're scrolling LinkedIn. So I think that's where you also have to bear the platform in mind. Like, what is the intention that people are coming to this platform for? You know, maybe they want to learn something, maybe they want to connect with people, maybe they want to look for opportunities for their own business and for themselves. So like, I don't always think that, even with YouTube, actually, I'm not sure, you know, I'm trying it out because people always say, do not upload audio only content to YouTube. It's not going to work. And I'm like, okay, well, let's see it, you know. Like, I'm going to do it because nothing bad's going to happen. Only good things will happen. Either it'll stay the same or something good's going to happen. Like, those are two options that are available. So I'm going to test it myself and I'll see if it works. And if it doesn't work, like, I'm not going to not do it.
Yeah. So a few things with LinkedIn is, first of all, in your contact details, you can put 3 links to websites. So always put your podcast link in there, because with SEO and Google rankings and stuff, a backlink from LinkedIn to somewhere else is taken quite seriously in rankings. But when you go into your contact details and find that bit where you can put 3 links to your website, it then has a drop-down menu and you can choose from personal website, company website, portfolio. Don't choose any of these. When you add the links to your website or podcast, in that drop-down menu, you go way down the bottom and choose Other. Because when you choose Other, a new text field appears where you can put 30 characters. So you can really put a little call to action in there. So it's really clear that, hey, here's my podcast, listen to my podcast about, or sign up for my newsletter, or follow these tips or whatnot. And I think even though LinkedIn is not geared towards audio, your podcast is about a certain topic. And you can use LinkedIn to post about that topic in other formats, in text, in video, in PDF, in, you know, all that kind of stuff. And then people get to know you for an expertise in that topic. And then, you have a podcast as well. How cool is that? So that is a way how it's really easy to make LinkedIn work for your business.
Like, the more I'm learning about it, the more I'm realizing how much I've not paid attention to any of it. You know, you see all the missed opportunities, right? And you're like, hey, here are 6 years of missed opportunities over here. I could have been benefiting me all this time. So
the good news is that mid-January, I'm starting my next group program. And the fun about the group program is that, of course, it's more affordable because there's 5 people sharing my time instead of 1, but also it's a really hands-on thing. It's not about the profile. It's really about getting active on LinkedIn. So what do you post? How do you post? Who do you follow? How do you build your network? And you're putting everything into practice straight away, because it's only 5 weeks. So each week we talk about something and then you put it in. But why I limit groups to 5 people max is so that everybody gets feedback every single week, sort of like a hot seat. And when you do more than 5 people, then obviously you get bored shitless listening to the others. But when you keep it between 3 and 5, you learn a lot as well from the feedback other people are getting, because you're not personally invested. I'm not telling you off. When I tell you, like I did at the beginning of this call, sort of how you could improve your headline, maybe you felt this is an absolutely flaming brilliant headline, and so you're not all that open for my feedback. But when I give that feedback to the next person where you're not emotionally involved, it's a lot easier to learn from it. So yeah, that's how I help a lot of people get started, sort of by doing it that way. I do work one-on-one, but I find the small groups where you get that interaction and support, and also the accountability. You're meeting again next week. There's the other 4. What have you done? What worked? That's always lots of fun. And I guess, do you do workshops for podcast people? Have you got something similar, or how do you work?
We mostly work one-to-one with clients at the moment. So yeah, once that's built up, then I'm going to look at how else can we leverage that, maybe through a larger community, maybe through smaller groups. I'm not sure yet. And when I do something, I like to do it completely with my attention until it is done in a way that I like it. So right now, what we're focusing on is the podcast, because obviously there's a production workflow and we have people editing it, and that has to get, sorted out so it's consistent. And then building my email list is important to me right now. So that's something that I'm putting attention into. And then we're looking at, okay, we're providing this free value in the podcast and free value through the emails. We have the paid one-to-one editing service. And then I will give advice via Voxer, as and when, because that's flexible and I don't have to get onto calls. So I'm really trying to batch and manage time and manage the clients. And right now, I think
Voxer for that.
I don't like it when I've done coaching with people and I had to wait 1 week to get my questions answered, because in 6 days is my next call and I'm working on the stuff from the call yesterday, but I'm stuck. And then I feel like I'm frustrated and a week goes by and I can't really ask. And I personally, as someone that delivers it, I don't like to have a full schedule, because I don't know, it stresses me out when I know that I have a call in 2 hours. Sometimes I can get distracted working on something else, and then I'm in a super creative state and I don't really want to stop right now.
Yeah, and that, I love that you're saying that, because I guess this goes for all your listeners. Look, how I said earlier, if you want to get results out of LinkedIn, you have to find the way that works for you, whether that's really planned or more free flowing. And I guess the same goes for how we run our businesses, and for you, when you know so well what works and what doesn't work. Now, I heard you say about one of your priorities at the moment is growing your email list. I also do that through LinkedIn. When I have a new connection, some people find this too direct to say, oh, here, go and download my freebie. But when you get the right wording around it, because I'm never serious, so my message has a bit of a joke in it, look, silly you connected, here's my spam. But I promise you to only do it one time, But really, when people connect with me, generally it is because they want to learn more about LinkedIn. So when I offer them to download my LinkedIn profile workbook, I even say, if learning more about LinkedIn is not your thing, just stop reading now and hit delete on this message. It's like,
yeah, we send some cold emails actually, because I have got lots of connections from previously, but not for this specifically. And I didn't want to get onto people that I've known for a long time for other things. But yeah, I just started it by saying, hi, yep, this is a cold email. Welcome.
Yeah, and
I just made it funny.
When you say that you knew people for not a reason, you could then even, in your case, and for anyone listening, whatever your topic of expertise is, you could say, hey, this may or may not be relevant for you, but do you know one person who is? And then you be very specific. So in your case, if you happen to know one person who's starting a podcast and needs help with this, let them know. And the reason why we always say one person is because if you ask, do you know someone, who could do with some help with their podcast? People think, oh, no, I don't know anyone. But if you say, do you know someone who, and then list a few specific things of where they're at now, then suddenly it clicks with the other person. It's, oh, yeah, so-and-so. And, these are all little ways that a lot of the strategies that we can use in our email marketing or on Instagram or whatnot, with a little bit of a tweak, we can also use it on LinkedIn. It doesn't have to be such a daunting platform or so different from everything else you're doing. What you do is you look for the ways what you're already doing, what's working, what you're enjoying. How can you tweak that just enough so that it also works on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I like that. So on that amazing tip, is there anything anyone's ever said to you on this whole journey of building this business where you thought that was on point and you keep coming back to it? Like, might have even become a bit like a mantra at this point because, it's just come up time and time again. Is there anything like that?
I'm sure as soon as we hop off this call, I'll suddenly remember what someone said to me in business. But when I was still an employee and actually in a role over 20 years ago, I was responsible for quite a specific project that at the time was also a little bit, because we were supporting injecting drug users. So not everybody in the community was in favor of our work. And this was in Australia, and then ABC Radio, so the national radio, rang me for an interview. And so I went to my boss and said, oh, ABC Radio wants an interview on the national news. I guess you better take this call. And he just looked at me and said, I'm not paying you 40 grand a year if I don't believe you can do your job. Meaning I could go on national radio and do the interview because he felt that I knew my project better than him. And that is something that's always stuck with me, that you know your thing. And I don't even, back then, I don't think anyone's ever uttered the word imposter syndrome. And I don't know if I really suffered from that, but to those who do, realize that as long as you know more than your client. Actually, in that same job, same message came across when I was going with a colleague. And we were going to deliver training, me about hepatitis C, him about HIV. And as we're in the car, he gets really nervous and he goes, look, this is 30 school teachers we're going to talk to. And I was like, yeah. He says, they're teachers and we're going to teach them something. I was like, yeah, but we know something that they don't. And I think that is what you always got to keep in mind. And sure, there's going to be people that know more than you, but they're never going to be your client anyway, so you don't have to worry about them. I guess that in general, in my career, these two instances have really helped me to think, hey, I know my stuff and I know more than the people that I want as clients.
That's all that matters, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who are further ahead than you, they don't actually spend all day on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on wherever, looking for people who know less than they do to point it out to them. They have other things to be doing. So they're not going to go and comment on your thing and be like, well, actually, because they're actually busy working and doing things. So.
And usually people that are ahead of you, I mean, most people are nice and kind.
Mm-hmm.
If I come across a new LinkedIn trainer and they're putting something out there and it's not right, I'm not going to comment to say, hey, by the way, LinkedIn changed this last week. I'm going to send them a private message, say, hey, great post. But as we both know, LinkedIn changes when you blink. So, I'll just do it in a nice way. But yeah, I'm definitely not searching for LinkedIn trainers to see who's where I was 8 years ago and then tell them off for it, because I got a lot of support and help from other trainers. And I'm friends with pretty much LinkedIn trainers in all the countries around the world, because there's enough. But I guess that's the other thing. There's enough for all of us. People, if they only want your knowledge, whatever your topic is, they only want your knowledge, they'll go buy a book. If they want someone to help them with it, then it's way more important that they relate to you as a person. That is what sets you apart from the next person in your industry, not just your knowledge. So, yeah. So I guess my big thing is to not worry so much about what others do or say or think, and just focus on your own business and it'll all work.
I agree with that. So where can people find out more about you?
Well, they can hop on LinkedIn and look for Petra Fischer. That's Fisher. I do have a website, petrafischer.com, but it's a bit hit and miss if I put new blog posts on there. Generally, people go there once they get a feeling they might want to work with me, or if they want to grab my free workbook, the sign up thing is on that website. I also have a Facebook group. What's it called? LinkedIn Tips for Entrepreneurs, something along those lines. Yeah, I am on Instagram, but I'm not very active on it. So, and someone was ahead of me and already had Petra Fischer. So on Instagram, I'm Petra Fischer Consulting. But everywhere else, I'm just Petra Fischer, and it's quite easy to find me. So if you're listening to this, absolutely invite me to connect on LinkedIn. Mention the Pristine podcast, so that I'm not going to reply to you. Oh, thanks for the invite. Where'd you find me? Because then I already know, and we can start a conversation from there.
I am totally going to go and find you on LinkedIn after we're done, and then I'll have to put this on the schedule to tackle. And I will also, I'm just checking to make sure I have all of the links, and if I have the Facebook group link as well. Let me just check. Yep, I have the Facebook group link as well already in the form. So what I will do, as always, is that I will put all of the links in the show notes and on the website as well, so that it will be super easy for anyone that wants to connect to go and find you without needing to type, spell, or remember anything.
Oh, that's so cool. And by the time this podcast is live, I'm also going to put the link to your podcast on my featured on page on my website. So who knows? I have no idea if anyone ever looks at that page, but if they do, they might come across your podcast.
Those are always the things where you're putting it out and I'm like, I'm just going to put this here. I'm not sure if anyone actually looks at it, but I'm just going to have it here just in case. Like, we do a lot of that, just in case it's necessary. Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time today to talk a little bit about LinkedIn. So many good pointers to go and implement, and a few things I think for people to think about, particularly when there's fear around whether to, go public or not, with their little closet project that the business sometimes tends to be at the beginning. We can't keep it a secret. I think there'll be some good food for thought there for people. So thanks for taking the time to do that.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. And I love that we had real conversations instead of just, here's a list of 10 LinkedIn tips. Absolutely love this podcast. So thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
Alrighty, that's it for this episode. If you enjoyed Petra's tips, don't forget to check out the links in the show notes to go and say hi to her. And of course, do connect with her on LinkedIn. And if you want to talk about more podcasting related stuff, then don't forget to join our Facebook group, which is called Podcasting for Experts Community, and you can just find us via the search. And of course, I'll also put the link in the show notes. If you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, or if you would like to talk about collaborations, then please drop us an email anytime. You will find our email address in the show notes. As always, I hope you have an amazing day, and we will see you for the next one. That's it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate you. If you are looking for a community where you can brainstorm with like-minded podcasters and business owners, then don't forget to check out our Facebook group. You can find it at pristinepodcast.com/group. The link is also in the show notes.